I have a poor memory.
Me too.
I think I have a poor.
Welcome to Eminence Unfiltered podcast number 22. Welcome to Eminence Unfiltered podcast 22. What is wrong with me? Welcome to Eminence Unfiltered episode number 22. Today we have Mr. K. Kulbhushan with us, very well known he's currently at Dr. Reddy's global head and vice president. He's very well known for his conversations. Those who have attended his trainings and programs, they might know already that how good of a professor he is. Not only the fact that he's a professor in terms of teaching, a lot of us, and including my own friends and my family members, also tagged him as Professor from Money Heist, if we all know what I mean to say. I will show you some pictures to you for the reference also. So today we'll get to know more about him, his passion for the trainings also, his passion for taking the business forward, and also to know about his personal self as well. How are you doing today, Kulbhushan?
Thank you, first of all. This is wonderful to be interacting with you, not just because you are a great friend, but I think this is an opportunity to talk about myself, which is in a different light, different from what people perceive of me as a professional. So I think the wonderful opportunity for me. Yeah,
I must
absolutely
thank
great.
you that you are letting me interview you. Thank you.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Okay, so I'll tell you the purpose of this podcast. We are trying to let people know who the leaders are really behind the facade, and they just see you as uptight person who's taking the business forward and making sure that means the companies are growing and right output, generating the teams, generating the revenue and driving the teams. We want to see the other side of you, that who really Kulbhushan is in his personal life. If you can tell me more about it.
Sure, sure. Yeah, I think I'm still a 12-year-old kid. Um, I don't remember much of my life till the time I was really 12 years old and I could make sense of the world. I still think I'm living the soul of a 12-year-old. I'm very inquisitive. I'm very curious about different aspects of life. And I think that gives rise to a lot of my hobbies. I'm very creative, I think. Very recently, we created a symposium for the launch of the lean methodology across the enterprise at Dr. Reddy's. And
Oh, that's why your team was so busy throughout.
absolutely, absolutely, and the whole management complimented that in 35 years of history of Dr. Reddy's, there was never ever an event which was managed like this, and that too internally,
Okay.
completely done by by all of us and me and my team. So I think um, I'm that childlike curiosity, and as kids, I think I was very creative because I was into arts. I used to paint and draw a lot, and I used to love those vibrant colors. And even at that, I remember I started painting when I was in class two, and my mom used to be dead worried about whether this guy will study or not, because every time she would see me at home, I would be painting something.
Okay.
So I remember in one of the parents teachers meetings, she went along with me to the school and she complained to the teacher, this guy paints a lot. Does he really study? Is he good in studies? And then the teacher said that he's actually very good in class, so why do you worry, let him paint. And I remember I got the first prize in class 2 for painting, and what the teacher said that this is the only guy who has used watercolor, acrylic, pencil colors, and crayons in the same painting.
Wow.
So, and I didn't understand the meaning of that at that point in time and how it was shaping me up. Later on in my life, I really understood that, you know, art is all about manifestation of your thoughts. You dream about something, and when you have a clean canvas and you see something appearing out of it and it starts talking to you, that's
Right.
where, art really carries a huge amount of meaning for you.
Putting your imagination on the canvas.
Absolutely. And I discovered that in life, as we go through different challenges, we face problems, there is not never ever a single solution to them. So you need to have the perseverance to try different kinds of solutions, different approaches, so that finally you are able to overcome the problem that you're facing.
Makes
You
sense.
can't give up that there can be only one kind of solution. So I think the if something that has helped me become successful, not just as a professional but as a human being also, is the fact that I don't easily give up. I'm very stubborn. So
Right.
if I want something, I want it. And I think this part of my um, life that a lot of people don't know about has largely come from music and from art.
From music and from art.
Yeah,
Okay. So you
yeah.
love music as well.
I love music, and I love all kinds of music.
Okay.
So be it
Does it depends on your mood?
it does. It
Okay.
does. There are times, for example, evening is a time for ghazals. I
Okay.
love ghazals, and I'm a huge fan of a lot of Pakistani ghazal singers like Mehdi Hasan, our own Jagjit Singh. So I'm a huge fan. During my college days, I used to sing
Okay.
as well. I was known a lot to sing ghazals. I love the current crop of pop singers as well.
Right.
Dua Lipa, I love her a lot. Her
Oh, I
songs are
love her
great.
too. I know.
Justin Bieber, though a lot of people do not, but I do love his songs as well. And uh, there are a whole lot of singers. I think right from the time I used to hear Michael Jackson as a kid, and I used to love the way he would take his pitch from such a low baritone to a
I
very very
know.
high pitch. I
I
could not
know.
imagine any human being could ever sing like him.
I
And
know.
then to see him dance and all. And I think over a period of time, the reason I switched to ghazals was of the deep meaning of life that they carry
The lyrics,
in
it
them.
kind of touches your heart.
Oh, it
Yeah.
does. Just in 5 or 6 words, they tell the whole story of a life of somebody. So that's just amazing how words can describe the whole story of someone in just 5 or 6 words. So it's very deep.
Wow.
That I do, and then I read a lot of books.
Okay.
Um,
Any genre that you pick in?
so I like short autobiographies, not big ones. For example, I like It's a Long Ride
Okay.
by the CEO of Walt Disney.
Okay.
So it talks about how the concepts of innovation, growth, and resilience became the hallmark of what he created as the CEO of Walt Disney.
All right.
Then Phil Knight is another author who created this dog shoe.
Okay.
So the shoe dog, sorry, the shoe dog is an autobiography of Phil Knight of Nike.
Right.
So the journey of Nike as a company, which talks about how they tried different models in order to grow, and how their perseverance finally paid off in terms of making Nike such a great company. And they
Right.
always believed in the adage, "Just do it," which was responsible for which reflected his vision, his determination to make something big out of Nike.
Right.
I like Indra Nuyi's a
Oh, I
book which is
love her
about
totally. Yeah. It's she's
My
such
Life
an
is Full.
amazing.
And uh, the most striking part of her book is how she strikes balance between the long term initiatives and the short term financial outcomes that the shareholders would always expect
Right.
from what she does with her business. But it's beautifully penned out. How can you actually strike such a precarious balance between the two? It's not always easy.
Right.
That book I love. And then there's a book which I love a lot. I don't know why it's not so popular. It was written back in 1926 by the name Today and Tomorrow.
Okay.
It's a book written by Henry Ford himself.
Okay.
And in that book, he described how companies can transform themselves. Um, and you would be surprised. He actually is the originator of lean, because
Okay.
Toyota people, when they wanted to make something out of their company after the devastation of World War II, especially
Correct.
when they were bombed with those nuclear bombs, these two gentlemen from Toyota actually went to visit Henry Ford and discuss with him, and they brought back that book.
Okay.
50 years from that time, when Toyota became the best, most respected company in the world, people went to them and asked them, "What was the mantra of your success?" And they said, "We always went back to the black book when we wanted to identify a way to alleviate our challenges." And that black book is nothing but the book written by Henry Ford, which is titled as Today and Tomorrow. Can you believe
Wow.
that?
Really?
This story nobody knows. When I read the book, that's when I came to a realization. Actually, Henry Ford was the
It's in
biggest
my to do.
visionary.
It's in my to do now. I have to read it. I didn't
Amazing
know
book.
this.
And
Okay.
the guy was such a visionary back in 1926. He said that cars are going to become expensive because the rubber plantations are going the people who do rubber plantations were very few, and they
Right.
will have monopoly.
Right.
So he said, why don't I create a big infrastructure in the jungles of Brazil,
Right.
right? And he called that land. He bought huge swaths of land there,
Right.
and he called that entire piece of land, practically like a city, the size of a city, Fordlandia. There's a
Okay.
book on Fordlandia, by the way.
Okay.
The vision that he had, and said, I will not do any packaging.
Okay.
Why do we do packaging? Is because we want to avoid any damage to the goods during transportation. He said, if I build roads where even water will not fall out of a cup, then I don't need any packaging,
Right.
right? And he said, I will buy all the jungles of Brazil, the
Uh-huh.
Amazon
Uh-huh.
can produce all the rubber that I need. So I
Okay.
won't have. Uh, there were challenges with the tribes there, which he
Right.
discounted when he started that project. But
Right.
what a visionary he was! So I get a high when I read books about these visionaries. How they thought about, like Richard Branson wrote that book, I Lost My Virginity, right? Amazing book of how he envisioned. He was nothing, such a poor person, and had very basic qualifications, and he thought that actually he could create an airlines of his own, right? Jack Welch, straight from the gut. He writes that when he joined the company, and in the third year of the company, he became a manager because he was so bright, and he was asked, "What do you want to become?" He said, "I want to become the CEO of GE." He was
Okay.
nothing. He was an engineer at the time.
Okay.
He said, I want to become the CEO of GE. And
Okay.
he had, and that paper was written, back in those days, there were no computers. So everything was on paper. And fast forward 15 years, 16 years, and he became the CEO of GE.
Wow.
So
This
amazing guy.
is amazing. Very inspiring.
Absolutely, very, very inspiring. So I think behind what people know me as, doing a certain role in Dr. Reddy's, I think I'm very curious. I'm a huge fan of learning. I'm a big learner. I want to learn everything, and especially the things which I think are difficult. I want to. One thing which I've not been able to pick up or learn very fast is playing guitar, which my son does very well. Somehow I've not been able to put my mind to it as much as I do in other things. But yeah, I'm a huge learner. I want to learn about new concepts, new ways of making life better, or even driving transformation within my working arena.
Right.
For example, I when I wanted to really improvise upon myself as a human being, I went to Jagi Vasudevji's ashram and did a course on inner engineering,
Okay.
and I've been practicing it for the past more than 10 years now. I also am second grade certified on NLP, which is neuro linguistic programming,
Yes.
how to train your brain
Right.
to actually control yourself and to actually unlock the
That's also
potential inside.
something that I really want to do. Means I was very inspired when you first told me about NLP. I think
Right.
that means this is on my to do as well. I want to know this that because books, no wonder, means it always shapes you up, your professional journey as well. You get to learn a lot, and the kind of genre that you read in the books itself, as it is in professional life, it helps you in personal life. It helps you as well. What about your other hobbies as well? Means, I'm sure that in some way or other, it might have played a very big role in shaping up your professional life as well.
Yeah, like I said, um, art has always been with me.
Right. You still paint.
I still paint, and there are every Diwali I paint Mahalakshmi.
Wow.
I love some modern art. I do paintings of modern art, mm, uh, and you will see some of them in my house as well.
Okay.
Um, what I and I always use multiple colors. You'll see very vibrant colors in all of them. I think I love life, so I try to put all of that in the paintings that I do. And I also like to experiment. So I will use clay, I will use crayons, pencil colors, acrylic. Acrylic is my recent favorite, so I
Okay.
try to use acrylic everywhere so that it comes out. I somehow wish if the paintings could talk themselves, and if I do a little bit of conversation with those paintings when they are ready, that
Right.
I could have made you better like this or that. So every time I
Wow.
do a painting, I think I could have done a better job. But yeah, I think I love all my paintings, though they are not perfect, but I think they do talk to me. And what I carry back as a big message, of course, it's a big de-stressor.
Right.
When you are painting, you are you're not thinking about anything. You are in a zone where life around you does not exist, uh, as if you are the only person on earth. And it is so amazing how this this way of painting, or this thought process when the painting goes on, this mindset actually makes you realize that there is so much to life apart from all the other things that we do, apart from the agonies that we face, or apart from different things that make us tense, stressed out. So I think painting is a huge de-stressor, plus it's a big motivator. Music as well does the same thing to you. I think different kind of music has a lot of meaning. The lyrics are so good. I love those, especially those songs which have very deep meaning in their lyrics. And it's lovely to hear such songs. There's a song which I love, which has been all time favorite for me, is Kholo Kholo Darwaze, from the movie Tare Zameen Par.
Yes,
I
yes,
love
yes.
that song because of the music's great, of course. It's
And you must be
Raghavans music.
relating to the painting as well in the movie.
in,
It's
and it's so energetic, how you, if you just open your mind to the possibilities,
right,
what you can create is unimaginable. So you have to just be open to everything. You cannot, at every instance, you cannot judge it whether it's good or bad for you.
right,
Take life as it comes. You have to be just open about exploring new ideas, new ways. And that, I think, that song really represents the way I am. Uh,
right, right. So at this point of time, when you said that you still paint, do you get time? Means how do you balance that? Because if I speak to you about anything, I know you are always working. You're always traveling. Acha Guni, this is the work, but I am in Japan. Acha Guni, this is work, but I am in Vizag. So this is always I hear every time I'm trying to do a research with you, and I try to understand how much this man is working.
yeah.
So I want to understand how do you make time for this beautiful part of your life?
So I'm not able to paint as much as I would like to.
Right.
Given a chance, I would make one painting every month, but I'm able to do maybe two or three in a year. But when I do them, I really tell myself that
Get into it.
you get into it, and I fix an occasion. For example, near Diwali, I would do one. Maybe when the summer is just going to come, I'll do another one. The winter, so to say, or the spring season is going to get over. So it's a nice feeling. It's a nice scenery you see around, and you want
Right.
to actually put them into a painting. Most of my scenery paintings, by the way, are represent a horizon,
Okay.
right? And when I was a kid and I used to paint scenery, I thought you could actually go there and touch the horizon,
No.
right? But it is endless. We know,
Yes, right.
as you grow up, you understand the meaning of horizon,
Right.
and it's only in the paintings that you can see both ends meet.
Right.
So
But in the
it's
poetry, you can touch the horizon somehow.
yeah. You can. My wife is a very good poet.
Is she?
She writes
Okay.
very good poems.
Okay.
So and I love that part of her. So I think yes,
So all
absolutely.
artists in the family. So musician, we have painter, we have
Yeah,
a
yeah. My
poet.
son sings very well and
Yes,
plays a lot of
that's why I
instruments.
said
Yeah, yeah.
musician as well.
That's true. Some kind. We have our hobbies. I mean, yeah,
No, no doubt. It's a wonderful, wonderful family.
yeah.
And I'm really happy that you're allowing me to do this interview at your home because that helps us get to a lot of other parts as well and touch a lot of parts of your family as well to know that.
Sure, it's a
Um,
pleasure.
I also have one question for you about your journey. Means you are here at Dr. Reddy's now. I want to know more about your journey to Dr. Reddy's. How was it?
So after I did my engineering, I went to a German company, and I was in Germany for about a year. I think that's the time I got interested in technology.
Okay.
And I was, though I was looking after an automation, set of products which I had to bring to India and set up the sales office in India. I got so much interested in robotics and programming of computerized machines that in the evening I joined some classes,
Okay.
and I learned the numeric and C numeric coding of these computerized machines there. And when I came back to India, to my surprise, this was the most sought after job, and I got hired in GE because of that. That I knew how to program these
You
computerized
started
machines.
with GE.
So after my stint in Shank,
Right.
Germany, which
Right.
was for about 3 years, I
Right.
set up
Mm-hmm.
their sales and marketing office. I
Correct.
think one of the great learnings that I had was marketing.
Okay.
At that point in time, I used to do surveys. I went to so many manufacturing industries in India. I traveled across the country and understood what do they need from the products, whether our products serve the customer needs or not.
Right.
So this is a German organization, and they're very structured. They're very methodical about how would they venture into a different region like India. So
Right.
they didn't want to just put their products out on the shelves.
Right.
They wanted a good market research to happen.
Right.
And it meant me going out doing market surveys, and I learned so much about marketing there, because there was actually a playbook which I had to learn and go by that playbook. So it was an amazing experience into the understanding the art of understanding customers' voice.
Right.
So I think that I learned there, and then I joined GE, such a great organization. I think the best of the training programs that I've undergone were in GE.
Right. See, I must cut you and tell you this. I think this is the reason that you are so good at it in spite of being a very technical guy. Because most of the people that I see who are very technical, they never work on their people skill.
Hmm.
But this love that you had for the marketing, I think this could be the reason
Could be,
for you to
could
set it
be.
off through this
Yes,
wonderful journey.
yes, yes. Could be.
Right?
Absolutely. Why not? I think so. Because I came, I went across the country, and I visited some more than 40 companies,
Wow.
and we had such a big survey process that each company took about 2 to 3 days. So, and I think that was a lovely experience. It carried all through with me to that.
Right.
So back in GE again, the trainings were fantastic, and GE had an amazing program. They would train you on Six Sigma, on Lean, but they had another program called CAP, Change Acceleration Process,
Okay.
and they would say change does not come to people naturally, and you change should be like a painless injection,
Right.
right? So though you are giving somebody an injection, he should not feel the pain.
Feel the pain.
So how can you make the change painless? I think it was a combination of these two methodologies that really helped in terms of combining the two. So they used to believe in a methodology called Q into A is equal to E,
Okay.
which is Q is your technical aptitude,
Okay.
your technical competence.
Okay.
A is your attitude, your mindset to
Okay.
change.
Okay.
So they say if you multiply your technical aptitude with your change management skills,
Right.
your effectiveness of change will increase exponentially,
Manifold.
right? For
Okay.
example, let's say on technical competence, we are normally very good. We are
Right.
engineers, we work hard, we learn a lot in India. Most of us in India, we are intelligent folks, right? Let us say on a scale of 1 to 10, we are at 8. But on change management, we are at 4. So the product is 32,
Doesn't complement each other.
right? So, but if I try to increase my technical competence even more, which we do naturally, uh, and if I improve it to 9, 9 into 4 is still 36, a
Right.
4 point improvement. But if I match both, then the product is 64. So combining the two skills is something as an art that I learned there,
Right.
which is so difficult to understand anywhere else.
Right.
Even when I did my masters, or even when I learned about, went to different colleges for my advanced education, or some management development programs, I could never see ever a course or a curriculum or a book which actually taught these aspects of change management which I learned in GE. They
Right.
were amazing. And then I was in Crotonville, and then I got a chance to learn from the best. So it was an amazing experience being in the US and in India. And I think learning about cultures is very important.
Right.
You get so much to learn from how different managers manage
Managing.
work. So
Right.
I had a lot of gurus there. So
Right.
during my entire tenure in GE, I learned so much. I had three big gurus from whom I learned. So learning project management skills, multitasking, how to get quick outcomes, how to manage change. Um, you have to manage change with so many different stakeholders. There could be a CEO, there could be some project manager whom you have to make sure that his expectations are met. There are people in different functions who have different expectations. So everyone's needs are different. How do you manage such diverse set of needs and still make the outcome happen? Something that I learned in GE. And then I had within GE, I had a chance to take Six Sigma to our customers and suppliers. So
Okay.
I worked with most of the chairmen and CEOs. Like I worked with Dr. Muthuraman of Tata Steel.
Okay.
Helping him implement Six Sigma within Tata Steel. Sanjeev Kerkar and the most senior people in the ICICI Bank. Rajan Mittal, and all these people who were there as part of the leadership team in Airtel. So I worked with a lot of companies like that, BHEL, and that consulting experience also gave me a very good insight in terms of how do these promoters or the CEOs look at their business, and what are their aspirations, and how can we actually create a program or a performance engine within those companies which will help in achieving their aspirations.
Right.
So that's something I learned there. And then I was handpicked for Jubilant, and I worked with the chairman for about 13 years. It was a great experience. I handled multiple functions like HR, supply chain, business excellence, and he played a very significant role in the mergers and acquisitions that we did in North America. Managed those acquisitions,
Okay.
um, practically stationed in North America for about 4 years. So all that happened, and I then a very great experience. Though a short stint was in Max Group, where I was chief of innovation,
Okay.
and I could learn a lot about how do we actually innovate. So that was a wonderful experience also. And Dr. Reddy's, I think, is an amazing company, because the our our chairman is so is a visionary,
Right.
and he believes in creating institutions, not in running a business. And he
Right.
says if you have the right process, right people, and aided by the right mindset, you can create a company which is unbeatable. And I think here in Dr. Days, we are in the path of actually, in the journey of actually making that happen, making it a
I
reality.
concur with you. Recently, I was in an interaction with a friend from Novartis,
Hmm.
and when I was talking to her, she spoke with me because she was part of Dr. Reddy's long time back,
Uh-huh.
and she spoke about a couple of things, and she said, Guneet, no matter wherever you go, Dr. Reddy's is one company that you always know that, okay, yes, they have treated you like family, and they
Yes,
never have an integrity problem of drugs which are going in the
never.
international market and in India.
Very
it's
true.
it's never going to be in that way, and that made me feel so good. That means, the person has worked in several companies, but she still talks about Dr. Reddy's, and she talks about it with that kind of pride that I worked for Dr. Reddy's.
Very true. Very
So,
true. No, no, absolutely. And since I work in Dr. Reddy's, and I've seen how even a plant serving um, uh, Indian emerging markets, or a plant which serves the US market, the quality policies, the technology, the control mechanisms, they're all the same. There's no differentiation between a plant which serves different markets.
right. Right. So I want to ask you this question, since you're a technical person and you have, even here also, you're leading certain changes in digitization as well and several other changes. I want to understand what's your take on the current status of the pharmaceutical industry. Means not just Dr. Reddy's, in general, I'm talking about adoption of technology and otherwise as well. What do you think?
So I think most of the pharmaceutical companies today are facing, especially the generic pharma manufacturing companies, they are facing a challenge of market consolidation.
Correct.
So US is the primary market for a whole lot of generic companies. So while there's a consolidation of customers, so the prices have fallen. There's a price erosion that every company is witnessing.
Right.
At the same time, we have China,
Mm-hmm.
which is a major supplier for the key starting materials through which we manufacture our drugs. And with those prices going up and the selling price going down, there's a huge pressure on profitability.
Right.
And that's something that every pharmaceutical company is struggling um, to address.
Right.
And everyone is adopting different ways and means. Digital is one of them.
Right.
So and it helps reduce, take away the non-value adding redundant activities for which we unnecessarily deploy people. um, and it also helps alleviate problems of waste, or rejections or reworks that we have. Each batch of product that we manufacture is very costly, and therefore every batch saved is money saved for the organization. And I think the biggest need of the hour for the pharmaceutical industry is productivity. um, we have to uh, we have to drive it like um, like a very high speed train, so to say. um, there is there is so much potential that the productivity drive can unlock within these pharma companies. There's a big difference between the way we work
Right,
and the kind of way of working that I have experienced in companies like GE,
right.
or when we talk about companies like Toyota. Toyota would hire very average people to work in their factories,
Okay.
but their processes are brilliant. While all pharma companies, irrespective whether they are in India or outside, they would hire highly intelligent people, but their processes are so poor, below average, right? So what we are eventually doing is we are becoming prisoners of in our own cage. We have
Right.
built a cage that we want everything very high tech in pharmaceutical industry. So our capital expenditure, working capital that is involved in terms of running day-to-day business is so high, right? And we have very poor processes. We are not actually focusing on them,
Right.
right? And we develop a new product, and it has multiple stages of manufacturing. We are not looking at how we can actually reduce the number of steps of manufacturing, but the timeline is very important for us. We have to launch a product every 12 months. A product development cycle time should not be more than 18 months or 24 months. But we're not looking at how many the products that we're creating, how many steps of manufacturing do they have.
Right.
The number of steps is equivalent to the cost of the product.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the priorities that the generic pharma industry has, they need to probably take a hard look at those priorities. We need to now, especially at this point in time, we need to focus more on productivity, the ways and means of making our companies resilient for the future,
Future as well.
right?
Right.
Because in the future, the scenario is not going to change for better. The scenario is going to become even more stringent.
Right.
It will your shrinking margins will become the norm of the day, and for that we have to do something that will prepare us for facing those realities in the future. So
Right.
which means we have to actually work extremely in a very focused way on productivity, on making new products which follow elegant manufacturing rules, on making sure every process is devoid, and we are able to uh, cull out non-value adding activities from every process, simplify it to the extent possible. um, and all this does not require huge investment. It requires common sense,
Right.
right? It requires only logical common sense to make all these things happen. So I
Right.
think it's all about priorities, which, in my view, sometimes get misplaced because we believe technology can solve our problems
We
of
had
today.
at a length conversation on that, where means I think you're deriving the session also on the critical thinking part,
I am.
which
Yes, yes,
yes,
absolutely. A lot of that will dwell into critical thinking also,
right,
because we are whenever we talk about innovation in pharma, we talk about investment of crores. But
right,
I took a study tour to Japan very recently.
right.
We found out they do not actually buy any automation from outside. They build it in their own factories. The
Wow,
people who are working on machines, they build it themselves.
right,
So obviously, those companies are so productive.
makes sense.
They don't call it automation, they
Yes,
call it autonomation.
automation.
Yes, they
Okay.
say this is automation with human touch. Any
Ah,
automation which does
nice.
not create zero failure environment,
Right.
or does not take the stress, does not take out the stress of the operator,
Right.
is not an automation
Is
for them.
not automation. Wow.
And they don't do it.
Automation.
Automation, right?
That is a very beautiful concept.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. I also just help me understand means when it comes to the patient centricity, I understand that every time we had a conversation, even on camera, off camera, at the conferences, I have seen you always focusing on the profitability by not ever compromising on the quality. And this patient centricity that is coming, I want to know that means is it also something which is related to your personal experience as well?
Uh, Actually, I remember a time when one of my maternal aunts, she was undergoing a treatment because of cancer,
Right.
and this was very early 2000.
Oh, okay.
And those days, most of the cancer drugs used to come from outside India,
Okay.
and there was a shortage of supply in the market always. And Dr. Reddy's oncology medication was available for certain types of cancer,
Okay.
and uh, to get a drug for her, and we used to run around in cities, talk to people, call different people, if we could just get our hands on one injection that she needed, and she needed an injection every week. And I remember those times when we would not be able to get secured the supply of an injection for the week. We would be so tense what would happen to her,
Right.
and that would give us sleepless nights. So I know what we all went through, and I was very close to her. What we all went through in that whole cycle of um, getting her treated for her cancer. That I think availability of drugs should be like that candy Pulse.
Right.
You get that 50 paisa candy.
Right.
It's available in every nook and corner of this world,
Right.
right? Though I'm giving a very different example. An
Right. No,
analogy is
but
that
I understood.
drugs that are meant for patients should be available everywhere.
Right.
We can't expect somebody who is ailing from a very serious ailment should only travel to the city to get medical aid or access to those medicines.
Right.
So can we create an environment where these medicines, these medications are available to the patients in every nook and corner of the country,
Right.
to the people who need the most? So I
Right.
think that personal experience made me very centric to this philosophy, and not only being centric to the fact that we exist for these patients
Right.
should be the motto, which Dr. Reddy truly embraces. You
Right.
know, they for them it's all about patients all the time. So, and there are huge number of stories where our salespeople went out of the way to secure medication for people who needed, and they did not have an access to it.
Right.
So, access to affordable medicines is the motto of Dr.
It
Reddy.
should be the first right.
Absolutely,
Yes.
absolutely. And I think to a great extent, that is something that a lot of us, we do have our own experiences in life where we would have faced a difficult situation with respect to health, our own health, or health of somebody who's closer to us. And if the medication was not available, um, we we feel completely helpless.
Right.
uh,
So, did you know that you will end up in a pharmaceutical
I
industry?
never knew that. I never
Okay.
knew that I would, and probably now we have a chance to, serve that aspiration or expectations of the of public at large, that if medication that too affordable can be made available to them anytime.
Wow. Right. That's very beautifully put across.
Thank you.
And okay, so now little bit into the technical part of the questions as well that I want to ask you. I understand that you're a huge promoter of lean manufacturing, and anytime I talk to people, specifically from Dr. Reddy's and some people from outside as well. So when we talk about it, means I'll just give you an example of the most recent conversation I had with one of the people from your company,
Mm.
Venkat Narayan, if you know,
Venkataraman,
right?
yeah.
So I was just talking to him. I was like, and then we're doing this, 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 and we are also doing lean manufacturing. Oh, this must be taken by Kulbhushan. And I was like, means, it's like that this has almost become synonymous, that lean manufacturing and Kulbhushan. Tell me more about it.
About
This
lean,
passion that you have for lean
yeah,
manufacturing.
it's a time when Jack Welch um, was retiring, and Jeff Immelt, the new CEO, was coming in, and he started an initiative, Imagination at Workplace.
Okay.
So, and it was an amazing initiative, and he said that if you can imagine something which can transform an organization, they would do their best from the corporate level to make it happen. So he said, you just need to dream. It was amazing. And I had just recently been to Japan at that point in time and had undergone a course on a training on lean
Okay.
and 5S at that point in time. And I found it amazing. I thought this is so transformational and so quick, doesn't have statistics, and you can use all the imagination in the world. So there's a particular tool called value stream map, where you map, okay, how does the information flow from customer? There's an information flow which is mapped from customers to your company, to your suppliers, to your own manufacturing facilities. And then how does the workflow? In one page, they describe the whole company, one page. And I love that aspect. I said, if you wanted to know about a company, you would go through pages and pages of their annual reports and then only come to know. And then they said, you can actually create a future version of this value stream. So if your current value product takes about 400 days to reach the customer,
Right.
how about if I imagine I can do it in 200 days? How about if I can imagine to do it in 2 days? So I wanted to research more about this whole concept of lean. And I came to know that at that point in time, Nordstorm used to be there. That's not a very popular brand today, but Nordstorm used to be very popular in US at that time,
Right.
US and Canada. It was an amazing brand. You could get the best of the clothes. And I came to know that they had shortened their entire cycle of understanding the fashion in the market to placing the products which were made according to that fashion requirements. This cycle is about 3 years for any company, any garment industry.
Right.
uh, they reduced it to 1 year, and the way they did it was amazing. So that's how I got to start reading more about it,
More
and
about
then I ventured into Toyota production system.
you need to
and
train me on it, because I understand it's not wishful thinking or imaginary
it,
craziness. There
yeah,
is a proper science
there's a
and
there's a process,
process
absolutely.
behind it,
So
right?
how do you look at those, every nook and corner of your value stream? For example, let us say you do events, right?
Right,
And when you do an event, there is a certain cost and timeline.
right,
Now you tomorrow you imagine that, let me let me see what is the possibility. If somebody asks you what can you improve, you will say, "No, I'm not you, I'm saying anyone would say, okay, I can improve it by 10% next year,"
right,
right? What if you are asked, no, you can't improve by 10%, you have to improve by 90%?
right.
Now the question changes, so the answers cannot be the same.
Same.
The answers have to be very different. That's what I learned about lean, and got so enamored that you can hear it. It is all Six Sigma is all about knowing the answers,
Right,
right? But lean
right,
is all about asking the right questions.
right,
And the moment you ask the right question, you have to figure out an answer now.
right,
And you may not get the answer immediately, but you keep at it.
right,
That's the best thing about it. You keep at it, and you
right.
say eventually you will get the answer.
So does it require brainstorming
It
with
does.
several?
It requires a lot of research, brainstorming, innovation,
Right,
creative thinking,
right,
analytical thinking, all bunged into one, which is
right,
what I loved about lean.
right,
And I then did my first project at that point in time, and remember, it was praised a lot because we cut down the entire product delivery time from something like, I don't remember exactly, it was something like 200 days or something, to about 10 days. And that was amazing for people. How could we do it, right?
right,
So I think there, and then the journey continued. I read more about it. I went to different training programs, learned from different gurus. I learned in Mexico, I learned in US, I learned in Japan. There was a very the Lean Enterprise Institute,
right,
which has an office in London as well. So I learned from very different people, and understood how Lean is implemented in in different facets, in different situations, in different companies.
right.
So, and since that time, I got hooked onto it. Uh,
Wow.
it's very fast paced. So
Right,
recently, our biologics division in Dr. Reddy's, they said, "What can lean do?" I said, "Okay, what is your biggest pain area?" That this is a product in biologics we manufacture. Yield is the biggest problem here.
right,
We lose the product. Product is so costly here. Every milligram of the product is value for us. In 20 days, we did the project, and the company said more than 6 crores
right.
in 20 days,
Wow.
right? So that's the power, right?
How do you derive this in your team? Means you are maintaining such a uniformity that you are the best at it, and then you are deriving it in your team as well. And there is a uniformity. They look up to you, but they are also in sync with you. How do you do this?
I think it may sound very simple. My team is my family, so they're not different. So I'm like a strict father with them.
Uh-huh.
I'm very strict when it comes to their learning. I don't compromise there. They have to attend certain things. Like, we were very strict about our kids attending school, doing so and so, and failing these kind of grades in their
Disciplined.
classes. Yeah,
Right,
I'm very very strict when it comes to learning of my team.
right,
I invest a huge amount of money in their training every year.
right.
So I don't compromise on that budget. I can compromise on my budget for any other reason, but not for this reason. Number one.
Okay.
Number two, um, if something, if they are being if they are being cornered in a situation, or they feel that they need help, I will never let them down. Right? I tell all my team members that they can be lions when they work in the plant. When they work, they don't do not be afraid of anyone. Nobody can take their job. There's only one person who can take their job, and that is themselves. They
Themselves.
themselves, right? Because if they don't work hard, if they don't work smart, they will let their job go to somebody else who is
In
smarter
that.
than them,
Yes.
right? So they should not have any insecurity while they're working on any project or any improvement. And learning is the primary driver for them to become very very good at their work.
Right.
They should be always 10 steps ahead. So I give
Right.
them an analogy: 1 is to 100. That means one operation excellence person is equal to 100 people working in the plants. So
Right.
you have to be so good, and you have
Right.
to be so ahead in your game
Right.
that nobody can touch you. So
Right.
every time you are brought into a situation, you are called into a situation, you are able to give the people a, a perspective which they are amazed with, an
Right.
approach which they can immediately apply to solve their problems. And when that happens, then there's a huge traction or pull created within the system. And I think that's where the team, and me, we can all think cohesively. We become part of the same fabric of operational excellence, because learning, application, and working very hard becomes it. They are the three tenets of the operational excellence team that I have here.
That's very beautifully put across. I also want to know this, Kulbhushan, that I know that means you treating your team better, creating that uniformity, and I know this kind of culture is also very important, where they're not moving up with any sort of pleasing, but with their work. But I'm talking about these trainings. Do you train them intermittently on lean manufacturing yourself, or you hire trainers from outside? How are you keeping them so up to date with what you know? They know exactly the same thing. How do you manage that kind of?
So one of the things is that I like to keep myself updated with what's happening around the world. So I have my network and my resources through which I continue to learn
Right.
every day what's happening, what's new, is there a new methodology. Plus, I'm also in connect with a lot of consultants
Okay.
globally.
Okay.
So, like the person who created Danaher Business System
Right.
is one of the guys whom I'm close to, and I keep talking to him.
Right.
Similarly, Paul Eckers, who wrote the famous book 2 Second Lean,
Right.
what he did in his own company to
Right.
make it completely lean. Then Lean Enterprise Institute is
Right.
there, which publishes so much on lean.
Right.
Shingo Institute, which is in Utah, in USA,
Right.
I'm in close touch with them as well. So there are a lot of sources from whom we continue to learn how lean is applied in different facets, in different industries, for different situations. And that gives you an idea how situationally we can apply lean in a
Right.
very transformative manner. And
Right.
I keep sharing that with my team. So I have a Monday connect with my team for 2 hours.
Right.
And that Monday connect largely is to look at how we are doing on lean and
Right.
what are the new things that we can incorporate. For
Right.
example, recently now we've launched lean at an enterprise level. So till now we were doing largely in the manufacturing arena. So how would we do it in R&D? How would we do it in sales and marketing?
Right.
So we're picking up a project very recently now on sales and marketing.
Okay.
So if you have to hire, let's say, 400 feet on the ground, uh, who will go out and talk about our products with doctors and hospitals,
Right.
how can we make it more productive? How can we reduce the time? How can we actually become extremely agile when it comes to sensing or creating that need or
Okay.
the pull in the market for our products? So there are ways and means by way of which we have to continue to learn, keep ourselves updated, share it with the team. I am good at making templates, so the moment I learn something, I create a template.
All
For
right.
example, even if I'm reading a book, on my phone there is OneNote, and I create a shorter version of every book. So every book that I have read, I have in my OneNote as a smaller version
I
of that
do, I
book,
do, I do, I
right?
do too. Because I was showing my team as well. That
Yeah.
means, anything that I like, anything that I pick, I have a note in my phone which is like words of wisdom. So
Yes,
I just put it there to
absolutely.
remember it by again. I cannot sometimes read the entire book, but I
Yeah,
want to remember how I felt in that very moment when I read
absolutely,
that part.
absolutely.
So this is a very beautiful way
And
of
there's a
doing it.
confession I like to make. Um, I have a poor memory.
Uh-huh. Me too.
I think I have a poor memory. I forget things. When I read them, I know they are so great. I'll do them tomorrow. But used to forget them,
Right, and you have
and
to revisit.
and I have to revisit. So there were books which which I would have read. I would have to revise the whole book again, right? So in order to get out of that, uh, before I had the facility of OneNote, I used to write in at every page and put bookmarks. At the end of the book, I would write different questions that these are things that I would like to do. How
Right.
would I implement back in my workplace? Now this is a very easy thing for me to do. So I create. While I'm reading a book, I'm always thinking what can I take from the book, what can I apply, within my workspace or my personal space, and I immediately make it happen. So
Right.
I have, this is something which sticks with me, and I'm asking my team members to always do something very similar with them. So I have encouraged everyone that one book in 3 months at least. I read one book in at least 15 days. So I'm asking them at least one book in 3 months. A lot of them are doing it. Some of them even come to a frequency of reading one book a month. I said it can be any book, because books are such great source of inspiration and learning. And we for us to keep ourselves updated, and I'm not talking about books which are Sydney Sheldons of the world. I'm talking about books which are management books. So
Right.
I say, if you have to get out of your boredom and keep yourself busy, get hooked on to lean. Read more about management. That's the best way to keep ourselves updated. I think that's what's working with
See,
the
you
team.
don't read any non-fiction at all.
I don't.
I
I
am
don't.
gonna push you towards non-fiction also now. I know that you don't have time,
I
but
love autobiographies, but because I learned so much from those autobiographies, how to think about life,
it's a
or
novel in itself. Means I
yeah.
just recently read the autobiography of Benjamin Franklin.
Oh,
Franklin,
okay.
and lovely. It's like his story since childhood and he grew up and what he did and all of that. But it's amazing. I know not many people are quite concerned about what he did as a child, but I'm very fascinated with his life. So it becomes a novel in itself. In a way, the only difference is that is a true story. It's not fiction,
Exactly. So
right?
I love reading about true stories. Somehow fiction does not interest me, but science fiction movies I'm a huge buff of.
I'm gonna give you some
Okay.
fiction books as well.
Done.
Okay, so very important question for our podcast is
Hmm.
like this is going to be listened to by several people, and one common question that we get by everyone is the struggle they have for transitioning from a managerial role to a
Hmm.
team leader role or a supervisor role. Means people who are just probably either not managing anyone to managing one or two people,
Right.
and then from one or two people to bigger team, and as the responsibility grows, that transition period is very difficult for a lot of people. You might have experienced it when you were transitioning into a leadership role too. How to combat those challenges, and what advice would you like to give to those people who are stepping into these roles?
I think in my own experience, one of the major shifts I've had to make when I transitioned in my first role from being a manager to a leader was the ability to think macro,
Okay.
think big,
Right.
right? We being engineers, we were so attuned to getting into details, the granularity of everything, and our ability to take a helicopter view of the situation and then think was very difficult.
Right.
It didn't come to us naturally. It didn't come to me naturally,
Right.
right? So I think for everyone who is transitioning from being a manager to a leader, getting a macro thinking is extremely important, because
Right.
our CEOs think like that,
Right.
our promoters think like that,
Right.
right? That macro level thinking helps you to judge a situation without bias,
From the aerial
right?
view. Right.
And understand how the interconnections play,
Right.
right? So when we are when we go very deep or granular, we are able to see a small part of the entire situation. But when we go macro, we are able to assess the whole situation in a more holistic manner
Right.
and come out with a solution which is more holistic and permanent. So I
Right.
think that's one. The second thing is strategic thinking.
Right.
So when we are managers, we are so engrossed in day to day
Right.
firefighting, managing chaos, managing exigencies, exceptions, deviations, uh, that we are not able to think strategic.
Right.
And strategic thinking for leaders is a must, because their bread and butter is strategy,
Right.
right? And while I say strategy, at the same time I have to talk about culture, because um, culture is strategy for breakfast. And if we don't understand how strategy and culture have to go hand in hand, we won't be able to become a good leader at all.
Right.
Because what people love us is for a vision. And that's, of course, another area for a manager uh, to imbibe, um, is to become a visionary, is to
Right.
create a vision that can propel change, a vision that can rally people around for that vision, for achieving that vision. I think that's going to be another important attribute of a leader that managers will have to start imbibing in
Right.
as they transition into becoming a leader.
Right.
Vision is something where, if it is compelling, it can create a huge momentum.
Right.
Right? Also, I think apart from strategy, culture, critical thinking is extremely important. There are two aspects of critical thinking. One is innovative thinking, the other is analytical thinking.
Right.
And obviously, you may ask me at a leadership level why analytical thinking is important. And analytical thinking is important not to do some analysis,
Mm-hmm.
not to see what kind of analysis to be done, but to understand what kind of analysis not to be done, how to avoid analysis paralysis, how to avoid Hawthorne effect. And in case I know some of the people may not remember what Hawthorne effect is. So Hawthorne effect is that you will do a good job only when I'm supervising you, when I'm sitting on your head,
Okay.
right? That's
Okay.
Hawthorne effect.
Okay.
So it
Okay.
happened in a city called Hawthorne,
Okay.
right? Yeah,
Okay.
actually, it happened in a city by the name Hawthorne, and there was a company also by the name Hawthorne.
So this is how they named
Name
oh
came.
my
So
God.
this is
Okay.
Hawthorne is a syndrome,
Okay.
right? Very much prevalent in pharma, where the R&D people would say, okay, I'll go to the shop when I'm taking a validation batch for new products. I will run the machine myself. But after he goes, the operator is not able to do the same, right?
Ah,
So that's the Hawthorne effect.
right.
So leaders from an analytical perspective had to guard against that every correlation is not causation. How to actually uh, take the treat the two things very apart. What is not the right analysis and what is the right analysis, because they have to take decisions. Because another attribute of a great leader is decision making.
Right.
And when you have to take a decision, the accountability of decision lies with you as the leader. As a
Right.
manager, I could say, oh, my leader did something wrong, he bungled up, so he didn't take the right decision. But as a leader, you have to take full accountability of every
100%
failure
yours.
and give the credit of everything, every success to your team.
Theory.
So there is no escape, right?
Right.
So you have to be ready for every decision that you take. You have to stand by it. So you have to become very good at understanding what is the right analysis and what's not.
Right.
And the other part of the critical thinking is innovative thinking.
Right.
If you are as a manager, you can afford to stick to an approach which has been dictated or prescribed to you. But as a leader, you have to create an approach. And
Right.
if that approach is not open-minded, innovative, out of the box, you may not be able to get to the results that you wish to, and you may fail. And finally, one thing which I learned very well in G from my own manager was, as a leader, you have to make sure you are hiring a team, and every member of that team is better than you. Right? You cannot become insecure with your own team members, and that's an important trait I learned. And I was never afraid to hire somebody who was better than me. In most of my companies where I worked, a lot of people were actually consultants who came to train us, and I hired them
Right.
because they were so much better than me
Right.
that I thought if they are in my team, we can do wonders together.
This is when you think about the company first, think about the work that you're doing, importance of that first, right?
Yeah, I always
Right.
thought that
Very beautifully put across.
I am not insecure in terms of what position I hold, or this guy will look better than me. I love intelligence. So
Right.
this guy comes across to me who is more intelligent. And I'm enamored. I want to be like him.
Right.
I want to
And
become something from
besides,
him.
I think most leaders don't see that means, the kind of people you are hiring is going to really up your own game. The
Yeah,
way you will be seen by the other leaders is going to be, yes, this person's team, the way he hires, the way he works, everything kind of sits together and make that person a great leader,
absolutely, absolutely,
right?
absolutely. And I think that's a transition from manager to leadership is a big mindset shift,
Right,
thinking shift. And
right,
the day we become a leader, we have to understand one thing, that it is the thinking that will make you a great leader. It's not, of course, actions are subsequent to any thinking. But
right,
if thinking is right, your actions become a function of the thinking itself.
right,
So make your thinking very profound,
right.
and then your transition will be much simpler a job
So,
than it can be for
if I
them.
have to summarize, the recipe to be a wonderful leader to help this transition period is number one, you need to have an aerial view of things. And number two, you need to be out of the story, keeping the biasedness out. If you're in the story, you will have some biasedness.
Correct.
Number three, critical thinking. It is always is supposed to prevail. You need to put everywhere
Yes.
critical thinking. Number four, you said that do not worry about an appreciation. You need to give appreciation, but don't crave for it. In the end of the day, maybe you have to give the appreciation to the team and take the blame on
Absolutely.
yourself.
Absolutely.
Be ready for it.
Always.
And last but not the least, do not be afraid of hiring people who are smarter than you. It's always better,
Absolutely. Yeah.
right?
They will make you look good.
Very beautifully put. I think that means I will certainly, it applies to me and everybody else as well who's listening to the podcast. But even I would apply it in my life as well. This is like the best possible way we could summarize these five parts. It's like that the leaders know it, but when we try to communicate it to somebody that these are the important things, it's very difficult to put it across.
Yeah.
So you prove my theory, which I said in the start, that you are a professor. Okay,
Thank
so
you. Thank you for
last
saying that.
very important question, Kulbhushan. This Our channel is being subscribed by a lot of kids who are from the universities and colleges also,
Mhm.
and these kids are yet to start their career or they're doing some internship. So, any advice that you have for these kids?
I think when we started our conversation, I confessed with you that I am still a 12-year-old kid, and I love kids. And the fact that I love about them is the students at this age are so adaptable,
Right,
right? We ask them to change, they will change, right? Um, they are not hardwired like us, right? So I would encourage them to be very open-minded about learning and not to take every learning as a test, as for an exam, but the learning has to be taken in a way that they think it can shape their personality.
self growth.
Yeah, it can
Right,
help them grow as a human being, as a profession that they want to attach themselves to later on in their lives, and in terms of creating a space for themselves in the society, in terms of establishing themselves as an individual within the environment that they work in.
right,
And that they can only do if they are open to learn, they are humble about it, about their achievements, and they are very collaborative. And often I remember when we were put into projects, and there were people or students who thought so highly of themselves, they were not as humble as they should have been, that they would not
gets
collaborate
difficult
with
for
anyone
them.
else on their projects because they thought that they would be able to do the best, and they didn't want to share that credit with anyone, right? And I think that starts the downfall of what learning can actually shape a person into.
Right. The
Um,
learning curves decline,
yeah,
right?
I've
So,
seen toppers from my college who've not been able to do as much from their lives as some of the other people who've been able to do, who are not toppers,
right,
but they had worldly skills,
right,
right? They had those skills which where they could actually win over the hearts of people, influence people better. They were very collaborative, and that helped them in the professional life so much, because at the end of the day, it's all about people management. Everyone can buy technology, you can buy a book and learn. If you don't know something of how a reaction process would work, you can learn from someone, you can learn from book, you can learn from internet, you can learn from YouTube.
right,
How to influence somebody who is not listening to you, you cannot learn from anywhere. That is something as a skill which you inculcate or which you develop over a period of time by experimentation. That is something you can't buy,
right,
right? That experimentation starts right from the time you're a student. It cannot happen later on,
right,
because then you become hardwired with that nature. If I'm a people loving person, if I can empathize with people, if I know how to understand them, if I'm a good listener, then I become like that while I'm a student. I become wired like that while I'm in that age, when I'm learning, when I'm studying. And that carries with you throughout your professional life, throughout your life later on. And it helps you both professionally and personally as well. So I think being humble, open to learning, being very disciplined, and being very collaborative,
right.
become a people's person, I think that's the best thing a student can do.
Absolutely. Very wisely put across. Thank you very much for that, Kulbhushan. And on a personal note, I think this interview is very helpful to me as well. There are a lot of things that, as young entrepreneurs, we are also trying to learn and implement in our lives and in our company as well.
Sure.
And I really immensely thank you for this wonderful, wonderful interview. And just one last question can I ask you? I know I
Yeah.
said last question. I loved your dog since we're
Acha,
doing
acha.
this year.
Okay.
So I wouldn't have met him otherwise. And I can see that means he's like tailing you everywhere you go. He's just
Oh, he
moving
does.
around with you up and down. If you sit, he sits. If you get up, he get up. Can I just ask you what's his name?
Coco.
Go.
Yeah.
Maybe I should be doing this off camera, but I hope you're okay if we take few
Um,
of the
uh,
shots with him
yeah,
too.
yeah, absolutely fine. Absolutely fine. He's a darling, and both my kids are away from home. My daughter is married, and my son, he is doing his engineering, so he's the only kid left at home. And so
Okay.
and by nature he's so emotional and connected with us that he, if I'm working out, mostly I sit here and work and watch television.
Uh-huh.
So if I'm sitting here till 1 in the morning, he will be here
He-
only.
okay.
So he's a darling, and I think pets always bring a different perspective to
Your
our
lives.
lives,
Right.
and it's very difficult to put it in words,
Right.
but their loyalty, their love and affection, it is without any selfish motive, uh, without
They retain
without
that
any
purity.
feedback.
In spite of you give them time or not, they retain that
Yeah,
purity,
yeah,
right?
absolutely. They do not look at any kind of reciprocation from us every time that they love or they shower their love on us. um, they don't they never have the need for reciprocation. Imagine if we were to do the same in our lives with the people whom we love, or with the people whom we care for. There won't be any discord ever. So there is so much that we can learn from our pets, and I think this is their amazing quality. God has made them like that, and we human beings, we keep fighting with each other because we always expect something from the other person.
On trivial
We it
matters,
will
yes.
matters, no? So, but they are such great beings, much better than human beings, I believe.
I
So
agree
therefore,
with
it's
you.
always good to have a pet at home because they're better than us.
I think we should also put that in advice for people, right? It makes you a better person.
It does. It does. It does make me a better person. I've realized the first time I kept a pet, he's been with us for more than 4 years now, and I think the kind of bonding it helps build within the family is amazing, and the fact that they don't ask for anything,
Anything in
nothing in
return,
return,
right?
and they only give love is such an amazing trait. I wish I could have 10% of it.
Okay, that's
I
so
would become a
beautiful.
better human being.
You already are.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kulbhushan. Once again, thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay.
This was Mr. K. Kulbhushan, and what do you think about this interview? Please mention in the comments below. See you next week. Thank you.